friends, and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. I am your host, Melissa Reich, your Bish Therapist, a real-life therapist turned pop culture aficionado, serving clinical interpretations and hot takes on all things pop culture. And today's episode is going to be a bite-sized Bish because, yeah, girl, Mandy and I are recording our M&M Hour tomorrow, and we're going to talk about all things Bravo. We're going to talk about In the City. We're going to talk about the Valley. We're going to talk about Next Gen New York City, possibly Real Housewives of Atlanta. I don't know, Real Housewives of London. Are you watching that? I've been enjoying it. And so there's a lot of things that Mandy and I are going to talk about. But today's episode, I wanted to give some thoughts / rage reactions after watching the most recent episode of The Valley and Next Gen New York City. Before I get started with that, a couple of things I wanted to share is that I am getting ready to wind down this season because I am going to be taking a break, which I really super need. At the end of August, my husband and I will be going to Chicago, which is where I grew up, Downers Grove to be specific. Shout out to all of my Chicagoland listeners. Ooh, best city in the world. Love y'all. And so I am working on wrapping up the podcast, but never fear, because two things. Number one, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be covering not only Bravo stuff, but Lindsay Lime will be coming back on the show, and we are going to be covering Netflix's A Toxic Love Story, which is absolutely wacky. And Amy and I are going to be doing another Darling Bish Hour, in which we might cover the Lindsay Clancy trial. Now, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a terrible situation. A mother with postpartum psychosis ended her children's lives. And it's too much to even get into right now, but the trial is happening currently, and it's bringing up a lot of issues about women's mental health and the mental health system and systemic issues with getting access to health care that, in a mental health crisis, in this particular situation had horrendous outcomes. And it's such a touchy subject, but I think it is so important to discuss. So I'm going to start doing my research on that. And I think our next Darling Bish Hour will probably be about the trial. Next season, when I come back, I'm going to be having some new guests on the show, just like a lot of really fun things. So I'm excited to kind of wind down the season. I'm excited to get a break, but I'm also very excited to come back. And one thing I will say before I get to this episode of Bite Size Bish is that my priority when I'm on my breaks is to still post episodes for Patreon. So if you want more Bish while I'm on breaks, please head over to Patreon, patreon.com/yourbishtherapist, YOURBISH therapist. We have Zooms. We're actually having one this Sunday that all paid members are eligible to attend. But when I'm on breaks, I will do special episodes for Patreon, maybe some more personal episodes. Also, it's ad-free. It's early release. So normally my podcast comes out on Tuesday. I release it to Patreon on Sunday. Oh, and it's full video, of course. So if any of that matters to you, please go over to Patreon. You can subscribe for $5, $10, or $15 a month. Pretty much a cup of coffee in today's world, right? A Starbucks. But I also understand that the world is insane and prices have quite literally never been higher. And I also understand that subscribing is not feasible for everybody. So for those of you listening to this and supporting me in all ways, thank you. Bless you. I appreciate all the support that I can get because it's wacky out here, y'all. So the first thing that I'll say before I get into Bravo stuff is that my niece and nephew, so my sister has 3 kids. Oldest niece is 19, and then her siblings are 10 and 8. And I am literally obsessed with all of them. They're my little love bugs. And I'm just play a huge role in their lives. We all really love each other. We're so close. And the 2 little ones are sleeping over at my house today and tomorrow. And they're just so cute and so excited. I'm very excited. I cannot wait to unplug and just squish them and love them. But one of the things that I wanted to share before I got started is that, I think sometimes as adults, we can get really caught up in stuff and forget how really little things can make a big difference to kids. So I wanted to share an example. They sleep over every year. And last year, well, I kind of do this every year, but because I do, fortunately, I don't have children of my own, so I can spoil them, and I do. And if I had children of my own, perhaps that wouldn't be the case, but I like to do it. So it's one of my greatest joys as an auntie bear. So when they come, what I do is I present them on their beds with gifts. I put them on a tray, like a breakfast tray. And, little gifts like blankets and squishies. Oh my God. They love, kids love these little squish things that you just squish, squish, squish. And so I got them all that stuff. And my nephew, I was talking to him a couple weeks ago, and he said, and he's the last person on earth that I thought this would have mattered to, but he said, you know how when we come over, you present our gifts on a tray? And I was like, yeah, bud. He goes, could you keep doing that? I really love it. I was like, of course I can keep doing that. So I have, I'll post pictures actually on my Patreon. I have trays of their gifts that I will be presenting to them when they come. So I share the story because number one, it's sweet and it's really cute. But number two, I think it's just a testament to when you do things with kids just out of love and you go that extra special mile, it really matters to them. I mean, I would not have thought in a million years that of our sleepovers that's something that he would have remembered or would have mattered to him. But now that he told me it does, well, basically I'm literally going to do, even when he gets married, I will present him his gifts. Well, by the way, if he does. Because I tell the kids, I say, you don't have to get married. You don't have to have children. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And you can live the life that you want to live. I really make sure that they understand that. But if he chooses to get married, I will be presenting his gifts on a breakfast tray for the rest of his days. So I'm very excited. And my niece is 8 and she still kind of has this squishy little voice. She's just like, I'm so excited. And, I love those little kid squishy voices, but they're growing up and those voices are starting to change. And it's like, I'm so happy to see them grow. But oh my gosh, it's just, I just love those little squishies. So that's a very exciting thing that I have going on in the next couple days. And then I'm going to be podcasting with Mandy and then I'm going to be doing a Bish Zoom. So it's going to be a busy week. But regarding my chronic illness and my health issues, what I did, because I know there's a lot of folks listening to this that have chronic health issues, what I did was do reasonable accommodations, which is something that my therapist talks to me about in terms of accommodating the ways that I need to rest and things like that. And so yesterday I had a complete rest day, which I don't really totally know how to do that. I kept trying to do things. And then my husband was like, this totally is not the purpose of the rest day. So he definitely had to check me. I had to check myself. But either way, I'm working on self-attending, self-caring, resting, taking care of myself so that I can be the best aunt and podcaster and wife and friend, all those other things. Although I did lose a lot of my friends. It's not funny, but listen, dark humor, you gotta laugh. Okay, so now let us get into Bravo. Last night's episode of The Valley and Next Gen actually made me feel pure, unadulterated rage for several different reasons. Last night's episode of The Valley, it was the season finale of The Valley. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. And we just saw the trailer that there will be a 3-part reunion. Woof. So here's the thing. The season finale was wild for a couple of reasons. And again, I'm going to get into a lot of this with Mandy, but I think one of the interesting things was Nia gave a lot of rich psychological context behind her behaviors when she was talking to Lala. So she explained having a chaotic and unstable childhood. And it sounds like it was really chaotic in terms of when she was with her mom, they were staying in shelters, and she didn't specify what shelters, right? I don't know if they were staying in DV shelters, women's shelters, homeless shelters. I don't know what that means, but I think that's an important note. She just said shelter. And they also stayed in cars and couch surfed and things like that. And then Nia's dad was awarded full custody when she was 7. So I find it interesting that Nia revealed that, the better parent essentially that was given full custody was her father, but he rarely expressed love. He didn't say that he loved her. And it sounds like there was a lot of neglect, emotional neglect, lots of safety issues, things like that. And so because of that, how she grew up, Nia wanted to choose a loving and stable partner. And she explained to Lala that she gets into this mama bear mode to protect her family unit without understanding that she married someone who recreates chaos due to his choices and behaviors. And so, unfortunately, I've said this before, is that emotional neglect in childhood, like childhood trauma, specifically with scarcity trauma and emotional neglect, will often present itself in adulthood as adults begging people to treat us better. Saying, oh, well, I know you're struggling with this, and I know you're having a hard time, and I know that, but just like, this is a really great example of how this happens for us in adulthood. And by the way, I have done this my whole life, right? If you can achieve, like with Nia, if, she's a pageant queen, Miss US, I don't know that world, so I know I'm saying all of this wrong, forgive me, but, she chose a life where she had to be perfect and present herself to people to be judged, and then is with a partner who creates constant chaos in her life. And so I'm one of those people who also picked people who couldn't really meet my needs because I didn't think my needs mattered subconsciously. And I've spent my whole life begging people to just treat me well. And guess what, bitch? That's over. By the way, I'm not calling y'all bitches. I'm really just kind of speaking to myself, but into a microphone. Is that that's over for me. And so I always talk about that humans will repeat relational patterns that we are unaware of. And sometimes that means choosing something that looks like stability on the outside, but has the same familiar chaos underneath. But what really pissed me off was the scene with Luke and Kristen honestly made me feel pure, unadulterated rage. And now I understand why Luke is Team Danny, because Luke is a shitty facsimile of Danny. I mean, the fact that people are so over-focused on Janet and Lala instead of Luke and Danny, it just shows the misogyny of the world. Now, I'm going to say on this episode, Janet totally lost me, and she just did not do the right thing, and she completely lost me, and now this is all fans are going to talk about, which I'll get to in a second. But at the end of the day, the fact that all these women are like, I hate Brittany, Lala, and Janet, and we support Danny and Luke. That is patriarchal misogyny at its finest, in my opinion. We're all allowed to like different people, but liking these men doing these things and then the women calling them out are the problem. That's a real problem for me. And I just don't understand that. I'm going to be honest. And I think the people in this community, the Bish community at large, a lot of us don't understand that, which is why we're all here together. But the scene with Luke and Kristen, I didn't cover this because I was taking a hiatus from social media. So Luke and Kristen went to a therapist, and he basically said that he proposed to Kristen because he hadn't seen a pregnant Kristen yet, and basically was like, I hate that bitch. And the therapist was like, wow, that's a really hurtful statement. And so, of course, King Baby Luke felt really attacked by the therapist who just had his number and held him to task for saying something so shitty about your partner. And so the thing I'll say about that is that therapy requires rigorous honesty about our character defects. We can't change what we aren't able to acknowledge is. And so I understand that, but Luke's defensive-ness went up because he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to hear that he's wrong. He just wants to hear that pregnant Kristen is a monster and that he's right. Like, this is some wacky shit. So I thought that was bad enough last week. But then this week, Luke and Kristen were talking and Kristen was like, you said you hated me pregnant. Why would you want me to get pregnant again if you hate me pregnant? And Luke confirmed this, saying, so that we can be done with it and put pregnant Kristen to rest. He's literally said, lock her up in a coffin, y'all. Get it out of the way and live a happy life. And then just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Luke actually complained that they were like talking about this again because he said, I've never been in a darker place. And I'm just like, holy fucking balls. I'm going to be honest. That's the only words that I can say for this. Holy fucking balls. So there's a few major issues here. And this is why the Lindsay Clancy trial is interesting to me, because mental health care, especially for women who are postpartum or perinatal, meaning like during pregnancy, throughout pregnancy, these women are dehumanized, not attended to. And then when things happen, it's like, well, you're a problem. And it's like, no, they have mental health issues that aren't being attended to. And Kristen specifically has a partner who, instead of trying to attend to her, love her, support her, is saying, you're a pregnant monster that I literally want to die, but just give me my second child and then we'll move along our merry way. And so mental health care is just shrouded in shame, and partners are supposed to support, not perpetuate those harmful systemic messages. Okay. Second, Luke hating a pregnant Kristen is just horrifying and shameful. There's something called internal family systems therapy. Within psychology, there's a ton of different approaches. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, psychoanalytic therapy. Internal family systems is known as the parts concept. And so essentially it's very complex. But to break it down, the thought is that we have to embrace all parts of ourselves, the good, bad, and the ugly, which leads to greater self-compassion and understanding. And the reason why we have to embrace all parts of ourselves is because all humans have healthy and unhealthy parts. I'm not going to say good and bad because I don't like to use those terms. I don't think we should say anything about ourselves as bad, just healthy or unhealthy, productive or unproductive mechanisms. For me, that's how I look at it. And I think it is insane for Luke to claim that he loves this woman, but he can't stand this part of her. And so I didn't practice necessarily internal family systems, but what I can tell you is that if he hates any part of her, I don't think he can actually love Kristen. I'm going to be honest. I don't think he can. And I think he is so into his hurt, which is like so Danny Bucco of him. It's like our hurt. Actually, Danny, Jesse, and Luke are all king babies who say, well, my feelings are hurt, so I get to do this. Jesse gets to tell Michelle she's a whore because his feelings are hurt. Danny gets to do and say whatever he wants because his feelings are hurt. Luke gets to call Kristen a monster when she's having postpartum and perinatal mental health issues. My point is, it's all their problem, right? It is so wacky to me, these men on these shows. But what's wackier is that the women in the comments, like if you want to see some crazy making patriarchal nonsense, go to the comments. Actually, don't. Protect your sanity. But go to the comments in Bravo TV. It's all about Brittany and Lala and Janet. And I'm like, what are we talking about here? So, like I said, Jesse at Brittany's Halloween party, which I called the King Baby Parade, Jesse angrily confronted Michelle about secretly dating someone because, okay, she was dating this comedian. I forget his name. He was a client and she introduced Isabella to him like at a listing, right? And so Jesse is upset because Isabella is having a hard time since Aaron left, right? So after Jesse and Michelle broke up, she moved Aaron in. She thought he was the one. And then he was like, you're not fit enough. I mean, he's a literal POS troll. Like, have you seen what that guy looks like? My God, please, Aaron. I hope you have lettuce diarrhea somewhere. I hope the people who deserve lettuce diarrhea are getting it. Let me just say that. So I understand that Jesse is having pain because he's seeing his daughter struggle and be sad because of the choices that Michelle has made. So his pain about seeing that is valid. But what he said to Michelle was, you moved Isabella into a house with a guy that left you. And I'm just like, see, this is where we have a real problem, because you think it's appropriate to say something like that just because you're upset and then threatening custody battles. So you want to take Isabella away from her mother because you're upset? I mean, I'm hoping he just said these things in the moment. But I guess my point is that just because Jesse is upset doesn't mean that Michelle did something wrong. And I am truly don't understand. Jasmine lost me defending Jesse. I do not understand that in any way, shape, or form. But then at the end, it's like, okay, so we find out Kristen lied at the party because Nia was standing right there. And then in her confessional, she's like, well, actually, I did say that, but I didn't really mean it. And it's like, Kristen is just like backpedaling all over the place. She's going on podcasts. She's going on Watch What Happens Live saying, well, I didn't realize how bad the Danny stuff was. And it's like, you know why you didn't realize it? Because you didn't believe the women who were telling you about how bad it was, Kristen. Now, the one thing that I will give Kristen is she dismissed her friends because I think she's being dismissed by Luke and she's like projecting her pain onto other people. So I think I understand it. I could be wrong, but I think I understand it. I just hate when people sling their pain onto other people. I just don't like it. So it's like, you're going to be in a relationship with someone who's not meeting your needs. You have the child now. I understand you're trying to figure it out, but I just think Kristen has a lot of lessons to learn this season. And I hope I'm very interested to see where everybody is at the reunion. So at the end, essentially what happens is like Danny is literally so intoxicated that he is barely conscious. He is slurring. He is unsteady on his feet. Jesse's trying to get him to drink water. And again, Nia and Danny try to hide it. And Nia whispers, are you drunk? And he's like, I'm not drunk. And I'm not making fun, but I'm just saying we have seen a consistent pattern of Danny engaging in binge drinking behavior. So binge drinking is when you have, like, I forgot the technical definition, I think for guys, like 6 or more drinks in like an hour or 2 hour period. And what I will say is that binge drinking is as dangerous and deadly as daily drinking or, you know, things like that. So it's just something that I recognize, and it was hard for me to watch. Now, Danny went to the pool house to pass out, and then Jason kind of went over there, which, you know, here's the thing. I think Lala's right in this situation. It's like Danny was so intoxicated that trying to talk to him about anything is not going to be helpful. The one thing I learned working in inpatient rehabilitation, because when people come in for their intakes, they're on substances, right? They're addicted to substances. They're coming in and on a substance. And so you learn how in the field to manage certain things. And the one thing that, you know, in addiction circles, they say that trying to reason with an intoxicated person is like trying to herd cats. It's futile and impossible. Don't even try it. You are literally wasting your time. And so if I'm going to be honest, I think Janet and Jason, I think they should have just retreated. I think they should have left Danny alone. I think they should have retreated. But again, they're talking about Danny doing things when he's blacked out. And the wild thing that Danny said was, like, to Jason, he's like, you've never blacked out? And Janet was like, he has blacked out and he's never grabbed women's asses. And if he had, he would stop drinking. And then Danny responded, like, he doesn't know if he did that because he was blacked out. And it's like, okay, forget Janet, forget Jason. That's a wild statement and super problematic. Like, if you don't know what you're doing when you get blackout drunk and you continue to get blackout drunk, I'm going to tell you that's a problem. Do we understand that? And so what happened was, though, Janet pulled an Amanda Batula. That's what I'm going to call it. She pulled an Amanda. Janet, in my opinion, had the moral high ground and then literally threw it away by throwing a solo cup on Danny. And, you know, Lala was totally right. She said Danny was handing you who he is on a platter and you overshadowed the behavior. Like now all anyone is going to focus on is what she did. And now, of course, I'm seeing on the internet, people are like, oh, if Danny did that to Janet, she'd talk about it for years and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, Janet was wrong for that. And this, to me, I chalk this up to sometimes survivors do things impulsively to either seek justice or hurt someone like they've been hurt. But in doing so, we can look like assholes. And Janet just looked like an asshole. There's no other way around that. You can't hold Danny to the standard and then you do that. And then, she went on the after show and she's like, he deserved it. And it's like, bro. Oh, God, I defended you, Janet. I defended you. Let me be clear. No one has the right to throw something, put their hands on somebody, a drink, a cup, a hand, a whatever. Nobody has the right to that. No. And when Danny was being, pointing his finger and he's saying to Jason, well, what are you going to do? You got a bum leg. He's intoxicated. He is blacked out. Let him, like a toddler, have this tantrum in a corner. And I would have loved for them to walk away. So before I wrap this up, the other thing that I'm going to talk about is Charlie and Amira on Next Gen New York City. Oh, and by the way, the one thing I forgot to say is Recap Rodeo, Lindsay and Brady. I just did an episode with them. And we talked about this Luke thing, like why would he want Kristen to have another baby? And Lindsay and Brady, shout out to them, they were right. One of them or both of them said, I think he just wants to have another baby and get it over with. And so kudos to Lindsay and Brady because they were right about that. But the other thing that Lindsay and Brady and I talked about when I was on their podcast was that Charlie, who is, honestly, he might be the top, for me, top problematic person on Bravo in terms of like these king babies. Like he really may be at the top of the list. So what happened is Georgia last week told Amira that Charlie said that Amira's boyfriend Kevin is gay because Amira is a trans woman. And so the one piece that I wanted to just reiterate is that Kevin's orientation has nothing to do with Amira being a trans woman. So Amira is a woman, right? She is transgender. She is a woman, and Kevin is dating a woman. Okay. What I'm telling you is it's transphobic, and it's just really, really gross that Charlie is supposed to be Amira's best friend. And to say something like that, and you see how hurt Amira got. And the reason for that is that trans rights are human rights, and the way that people treat trans folks most of the time is horrendous. Either it's willful ignorance or it can be bigotry. But either way, for Charlie to make that statement is absolutely unacceptable, and it's hateful and it's gross. And so what I hated about the most recent episode is that Amira met Charlie and allowed him to manipulate enough that she is willing to forgive Charlie, who admitted essentially that he said it, but again, he did it in this crazy making way where it was so wacky to me how he said it. I did have to write it down. So Charlie is trying to throw Georgia under the bus, saying like she was willing to hurt you in her quest to hurt me. And so like I understand why Amira is upset at Georgia, right? If Charlie said this stuff and you really find it transphobic and you find it horrific, then why are you just telling Amira now? Why are you telling her on camera? Why are you doing it impulsively? Right. Some of these things are suspect. But then Amira pushed to know if Charlie said it. And this is what Charlie said. I literally transcribed it. God's honest truth. I don't remember saying that to Georgia. I'm self-aware enough to admit, self-aware my ass. Sorry. I'm self-aware enough to admit that perhaps it sounds like something that maybe I would have said. Now, who knows the context in which it was said? Were it to have been said, it wasn't said in a malicious, negative way. Okay, so two things. How on earth is this accountability? Charlie did say it. He is admitting that he said it without admitting that he said it. So he's saying, yes, I said it without actually having to own it or take any of the accountability. When you're repairing a relationship rupture, that is the single most important piece, is saying, I did this, I own it, and here is what my behavior change is going to be moving forward. That is how you repair it. So Amira clearly has a soft spot for Charlie that, in my opinion, is blinding her a bit, because this was not accountability, and therefore you can't have a real apology without an authentic understanding of how we hurt someone and owning our behaviors. And second, what context would make this statement okay? That's what I want to know. In what context would this statement be fine? Because I can't think of a single one. And so I am going to be honest, when the world is in a tough place and I see these men doing these things and saying these things, it creates like this collective rage in my soul. And that's my problem. I have to unfurl all the anger and the rage about all these men and all this stuff and not let it all get to me. Because, for example, someone on my Instagram was like, can you cover the McBee dynasty? And I was like, no, I can't, because this is enough for me. Like, these behaviors, these men, this stuff, it's like squashing my soul. And no, I cannot. I can tell you about the McBee dynasty. They all suck. They suck. They suck. Whatever you think about them, that's probably accurate. They suck. Good old country boys with misogynistic and patriarchal values. I mean, what do you want? That's my assessment. Okay? I mean, I haven't watched it. I'm just being ridiculous, obviously. But I just feel like I need to preserve my sanity. So number one, I'm happy that the Valley is over. I love a reunion. Even if I don't watch a show, like a whole season of a show, I'll watch a reunion. So I'm definitely going to be in for the Valley reunion. I will be posting about it every single week. I will be podcasting about it every single week. Next Gen going to continue to cover that. And we will definitely be talking about the situation with Charlie, talking a little bit more about what is transphobia and, all of that other stuff. Because Lindsay Brady and I had gotten some messages from people just about thanking us for educating about, most people didn't even think about Charlie's comment or why that's so dangerous or why it's so hurtful. And so I appreciate the people who are like, oh, I never thought of this. And thank you for talking about it. I mean, that's what I love about this podcast, is like being able to have respectful conversation around these issues. I just think that's a beautiful thing. So thank you to this community for always being willing to do that. I am really fortunate to have this beautiful corner of the world where people are thoughtful and have critical thinking skills and, empathy. That's just lacking in the world and all that other good stuff. So stay tuned, because I will be talking about In the City. I have actually a lot of thoughts about Amanda and Kyle that I'm going to be talking about on M&M Hour. And just can't wait to see where this all goes. So for today, I'm going to say, please check out Your Bish Therapist on Instagram. Please, if you'd be so kind, rate, view, subscribe wherever you're viewing or listening to this podcast. And thank you all for being here. So sending love to you and yours, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer: posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.